They were still laughing when it happened. That's the part I keep coming back to, even now. The timing of it. The fact that the laughter hadn't fully died. That the echo of it was still in the room, still in the air between the wine glasses and the good china and the candlelight. When everything changed. When the same dog they had been laughing at 60 seconds earlier became the only reason one of them was still breathing. I want to be precise about those 60 seconds, about the distance between the laughter and what followed it. Because that distance, that specific, humiliating, then suddenly irrelevant distance, is the whole story. Everything I need you to understand is in those 60 seconds and what they cost and what they gave back. My dog's name is Bo. He is a 6-year-old basset hound with ears that drag on the floor and a face that appears to be in a state of permanent, existential concern, and a body that has been described by people who thought they were being clever as a loaf of bread that grew legs. He is slow in the way that basset hounds are slow, deliberate, ground level, enormously dignified in his unhurriedness. He has a voice that, when he uses it, operates at a frequency that can be felt in the chest cavity. He has never, in his 6 years, been described as impressive by anyone who saw him for the first time. He was laughed at that night by 5 people sitting around a dinner table, and then he did what he did, and nobody laughed after that. Let me tell you about Bo, and let me tell you about the dinner, and let me take you through the 60 seconds that split the evening into before and after. Bo came into my life 3 years ago, when I was 33, and living alone in a house that had more space than one person needed. The house had been chosen, or allowed to be chosen, during a relationship that ended 8 months before I found Bo. My ex had wanted space, had wanted natural light, had wanted a yard. We had found all of those things in a house that was now, 8 months after the relationship's end, just mine, too large and too quiet in the evenings. I didn't go looking for a basset hound specifically. I went to the local rescue shelter on a Saturday afternoon in March because a coworker had mentioned that the shelter was overcrowded and that there were senior and specialty breed dogs that were having trouble finding homes. I went with the vague intention of browsing, which is the kind of intention that leads to bringing an animal home. Bo was in the second kennel from the left. He was sitting, not lying, sitting, with his considerable dignity, his ears pulled around him on the kennel floor, his face arranged in its characteristic expression of deep and philosophical concern. He was 3 years old, surrendered by an owner who had apparently not researched the basset hound temperament before acquiring one and had found the reality incompatible with their expectations. He looked at me. I looked at him. "How long has he been here?" I asked the volunteer. 5 weeks, she said. "He's a hard one to place. People see the photo and think it's cute, but then they come in and he's..." She hesitated. "He's a lot of dog." "What does that mean?" "He's very independent. He knows his own mind. He doesn't try to impress people." I looked at Bo. He was regarding me with the specific expression of someone who is evaluating a potential arrangement and hasn't decided yet. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to be chosen. He was just looking. "I'll take him," I said. The volunteer looked at me carefully. "He drools," she said, "and he howls, and he's..." "I'll take him," I said again. "He has been mine since that Saturday in March. He has been the thing that makes the house feel inhabited instead of occupied. He has been the warmth at the foot of my bed and the reason I walk every morning in the particular meditative way that walking a basset hound enforces. Slow, ground level, stopping for everything interesting, arriving at acceptance of a pace that is not your own. He has been, in ways I find difficult to explain to people who have not had a specific dog for a specific part of their lives, essential. Not convenient, not easy, essential. I didn't know this would change everything. The dinner in question was my sister Claire's idea. She had a new boyfriend, a man named Harrison, who was, by all available evidence, the most significant relationship she'd had in several years. She wanted to introduce him to the family in the setting of a home-cooked dinner rather than a restaurant, because she felt that restaurants were performances, and she wanted something more real. The something more real she proposed was my house, partly because my house was the largest, and partly because I had the yard, which was better for the warm weather version of a long meal. The guest list was Claire and Harrison, my mother, Eleanor, my uncle Richard, who was Eleanor's brother, and who had been a fixture at family gatherings my entire life, Richard's wife, Patricia, and my friend from college, Dominic, who'd been folded into my family's events years ago and who I had invited because I wanted at least one person at the table who was unconditionally on my side. Beau obviously was in the house. This was his house. He was not going to be sequestered for the evening to make a better impression on Harrison, and Claire knew this and had warned Harrison, and Harrison had said he was fine with dogs, which was the thing people said before they encountered Beau specifically. I want to describe Harrison because the story requires it and because I want to be fair to him, which is a more complex project now than it was before that dinner. He was 38, successful in a financial sector way that expressed itself in the specific confidence of someone who has been good at things that other people measure. He was handsome in an angular way, well-dressed in the deliberate manner of a man who has decided that appearance is a communication. He was charming in the practiced way of someone who spends professional time being charming. My sister was clearly happy with him, which was the thing that mattered most to me and the thing I kept centering when my instincts registered something about him that I wasn't ready to name. He arrived with Claire at 7. He shook my hand with the firm, practiced shake of someone who has read about handshakes. He said nice house with the specific intonation of someone meaning nice house for a single person who lives alone. He looked around the living room and he found Beau. Beau was on the couch. This was not allowed. He knew it was not allowed. He did it anyway, with the philosophical position of someone who has considered the rules and found them less persuasive than the comfort of the couch cushions. Harrison looked at Beau. Beau looked at Harrison. "Is that a dog?" Harrison said. "That's Beau," I said. "What's wrong with its face?" "Nothing," I said. "That's how basset hounds look." Harrison made a sound that was almost a laugh. "It looks like it's depressed." "He's thinking," I said. Beau continued looking at Harrison with the unhurried assessment of someone who is in no rush to form a conclusion. The dinner started well in the external sense. My cooking was good. I'm a competent cook, and I'd made something that rewarded the effort with results that the table acknowledged. The wine was good. The conversation did the early evening thing of covering comfortable territory before it found its register. My mother charmed Harrison with the ease she brought to charming everyone. Uncle Richard told the stories he always told, with the timing he'd refined over decades of family dinners. Patricia made the observations she always made, which were sharp and often right. Dominic watched everything with the particular attention of someone who is both participant and audience, which was one of the things I valued most about him. Claire was bright and happy and nervous in the specific way of someone who wants two important parts of their life to merge smoothly and is monitoring the seams. Beau was under the table. This was his position at dinner, not begging because basset hounds have more dignity than that, but present. Warm weight against my feet, the occasional check-in, his nose appearing at the tablecloth's edge, assessing the situation, withdrawing. The laughter started with Harrison. He noticed Beau's nose appearing at the tablecloth and made a comment, something about the dog doing quality control. That would, funny enough, to generate a small, genuine laugh from the table. Then Richard made a comment that built on it. Then Patricia. The specific kind of dinner table momentum that builds when something catches. Beau, to his credit, appeared entirely unbothered. He withdrew his nose. He settled back against my feet. He breathed the deep, slow breath of a dog that is resting in his own home. "How old is he?" Harrison asked. 6, I said. 6 years, Harrison said. And he still doesn't know not to beg? He's not begging, I said. He's under the table. There's a difference. Small distinction from where I'm sitting, Harrison said with the smile of someone who is being charming and knows it. Richard laughed. Patricia smiled. My mother made a diplomatic sound. I looked at Dominic. He looked at me. The look of two people who are communicating something they aren't going to say out loud. He's a basset hound, I said. They're ground-oriented dogs. They like to be low and close. Ground-oriented, Harrison repeated, with the tone of someone who finds a euphemism slightly amusing. That's one way to put it. What would you call it? I asked. I'd call it a very expensive piece of furniture, Harrison said. The table laughed. My sister laughed. I watched her laugh, and I thought, she is nervous, and this is the person she's chosen, and I am going to be generous with that for her sake. He's actually quite smart, I said. Basset hounds are scent hounds. Their sense of smell is one of the most developed of any breed. Their nose is essentially their superpower. Useful for what? Harrison said. Tracking, I said. Finding things, detecting things. Dogs like Beau are used in search and rescue and medical detection programs in law enforcement. Harrison looked at the tablecloth where Beau's general location could be inferred from the slight movement. That dog? Dogs like him, I said. I'm not sure that particular specimen is going to be solving any crimes, Harrison said. The table laughed again. My mother, I noticed, did not. Dominic did not. And then Beau, from under the table, made a sound. Not his howl. That was a different sound. A long, resonant declaration that he used for specific purposes. This was something else, a low, continuous sound that I had heard exactly twice before in 3 years, and that I had learned from those 2 prior occasions to pay attention to. It was not distress and not fear, and not the growl-adjacent warning sound that dogs make when they feel threatened. It was something more specific than any of those things. more focused. I looked under the tablecloth. Bo was not under my feet anymore. He had moved, quietly, which basset hounds are not known for, to the end of the table. He was oriented toward Richard. Specifically, precisely, oriented toward Richard, his nose down and working, that continuous low sound still coming from deep in his chest. Uncle Richard was in the middle of a story. He hadn't noticed. I noticed. What happened next still haunts me. I watched Bo for a moment. He was absolutely still except for his nose, which was moving in the specific, rapid, focused way I associated with him being on the track of something he considered significant. His ears, those magnificent floor-trailing ears, were forward in a way they rarely were, because the length of them makes that particular posture a conscious effort. He was making the effort. He was pointed at Richard like a compass that has found north. I had seen Bo do this twice before. Once when a neighbor had left their gas line cracked open and I had not noticed, and Bo had stood in the direction of the neighbor's house for 20 minutes with this exact focused quality until I investigated and found the problem. Once in a parking lot when he had oriented himself toward a parked car with a child locked inside who I had not seen. Both times, he'd been right about something that needed attention. I looked at Richard, who was at the far end of the table, gesturing as he spoke, animating his story in the way he always animated stories. He looked fine, normal, dinner party Richard, but he was sweating. I noticed this now that I was looking specifically, a sheen on his forehead that was more than warmth, more than wine, and his color was slightly off, not dramatically, the kind of slight change that you miss when you're not looking and register immediately when you are. And he had stopped gesturing. This was the thing that I couldn't not notice once I'd noticed the sweat and the color. Richard was a gesturer, had been a gesturer my entire life, and his hands were now still on the table in front of him, and he was still talking, but his hands were still. "Richard," I said. He kept talking. "Richard," I said again, louder, with something in my voice that interrupted the story at its own momentum. Everyone at the table looked at me. "Are you okay?" I said to Richard. He looked at me. He started to say something, then he said, "I'm not sure." Those 3 words in that order are the most frightening words I know now. Not "I'm having a heart attack," not "call an ambulance." The honest, understated, genuinely uncertain "I'm not sure," which is what people say when something is wrong enough to register, but the social contract of a dinner table makes it hard to say it plainly. I was out of my chair. Bo was already there. That's the thing I keep coming back to. He was already at Richard's side when I got there, already pressing himself against Richard's leg, already doing the specific grounding thing he did, warm and solid and present, while I was still standing up. He had known before any of us. He had been telling us for the past several minutes from under the table, oriented toward Richard with that focused, low, continuous sound, and we, the humans at the table, with our conversation and our wine and our jokes about the dog who wasn't smart enough to solve crimes, had not been paying attention. Harrison had been laughing 60 seconds earlier. I reached Richard at the same moment Dominic did, because Dominic had also been watching me watch something and had followed my attention with the speed of someone who trusts what he sees. Between the two of us, we got Richard out of his chair and to the couch in the living room. My mother was on the phone with emergency services within 30 seconds of Richard saying, "I'm not sure." Patricia was beside her husband, her hands on his face, talking to him in a low, steady voice that was the most contained expression of terror I have ever witnessed. Bo never left Richard's side. Through the moving from the table to the couch, through the organized chaos of the next several minutes, through the arrival of the paramedics 9 minutes after the call, Bo was there, pressing against Richard's legs when he was sitting, moving with him, present in the specific, purposeful way that was entirely different from his usual, amiable nearness. The paramedics arrived and they were efficient and calm in the way of people who are very good at something urgent. They assessed Richard, asked him questions, did the things that needed to be done. One of them noticed Bo pressed against Richard's leg and said to me, "Was the dog alerting?" "I think so," I said. The paramedic nodded slowly, not surprised. Like this was information that fit into a framework he already had. Richard had a cardiac event, not the catastrophic kind. The kind that is the warning before the catastrophic kind. The kind that the cardiologist described later as a very serious thing that caught early is a very different thing than a very serious thing caught late. The paramedics stabilized him. He went to the hospital. He was there for 3 days and he came home with medication and a treatment plan and a follow-up schedule that he has, as far as I know, followed exactly. He is alive and well, and the dinner table, after the paramedics left, was a very different place from the dinner table 30 minutes earlier. Harrison was standing near the window. He had the specific quality of someone who has been stripped of their social armor by something that didn't care about social armor. The practiced charm was simply gone, not masked, just absent. He was looking at the space where Richard had been sitting, and then at Bo, who had returned to his spot near the couch and was lying with his chin on his paws. He knew, Harrison said. Not a question, just saying it to the room, to no one in particular. "Yes," I said. He was... Harrison stopped. He was making that sound. Before anyone noticed anything, he was already telling us, Dominic said from across the room. Harrison looked at Bo. Bo looked at Harrison. The same assessing look from earlier in the evening, from the couch where Harrison had found him when he arrived, but different now in some way that I don't have precise language for. The same eyes, the same face, the same philosophical expression of concern, but the context of the look was entirely different. "I said some things," Harrison said. "You did," I agreed. "I wasn't going to soften it." "About him," Harrison said, "at the table. Before..." He stopped again. "Before he saved my uncle's life," I said. "Yes." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not to me, to Bo." He said it to the dog. He crossed the room and he crouched down and he looked at Bo and he said, "I'm sorry." Bo regarded him with those deep-set, patient eyes. Then Bo licked his hand. Once decisively in the forgiving way of an animal that doesn't hold on to things and doesn't need you to earn it. Harrison stayed like that for a moment, crouched next to my basset hound in my living room with the evidence of an extraordinary hour still in the air. And he was, for the first time since he'd arrived, entirely without performance. Just a person in a room with a dog, receiving something that hadn't been earned. "He's a good dog," Harrison said. "He's the best dog," I said. My mother found me in the kitchen around 11 that night, After the paramedics were long gone and the table had been cleared and Patricia had gone to the hospital and Dominic had stayed to help me clean up, and Claire and Harrison had remained because nobody quite knew how to leave after something like that. She stood in the kitchen doorway and looked at me for a moment. Then she said, "He knew before any of us." "Yes," I said. "I was watching him," she said. "After you called Richard's name, I was watching Beau. He was—" She shook her head slightly. "He was already there." "He was already telling us," I said, "under the table, for a few minutes before. It took me a few minutes to hear it." My mother looked at Beau, who was on his bed in the corner of the kitchen, where he always was in the evenings, the specific spot he had claimed in the first week and never relinquished. She walked over and crouched beside him and put her hand on his head. My mother is not a dog person in the way I am a dog person. She loves dogs in the general, comfortable way of someone who grew up with them and considers them a normal part of a household. She had never made any particular fuss about Beau specifically. "Good boy," she said to him, with a specificity and a weight that I had never heard her use before. Beau closed his eyes under her hand. "You know," she said, standing back up and looking at me, "Harrison made all those jokes." "I know. Right before." "Yes." And then she looked at the living room where Claire and Harrison were sitting in a quiet I could hear from the kitchen. "There's something about that, about the timing of it." "There's a lot about that," I agreed. My mother looked at me for a moment. "He's a very good dog, Elena." "I know," I said. "We should all be paying better attention," she said. Claire came to find me later. Harrison had gone to get more wine from his car, some errand that was also, I understood, a few minutes outside that he needed. Claire sat at my kitchen table and looked at Beau and then at me. "Harrison feels terrible," she said. "He should, a little," I said, not unkindly. "He does," she said. "He really does." She looked at Beau. "He keeps talking about it, about the timing, about the fact that he was—" She stopped. "He's not usually like that, you know. That performative thing at the table. He was nervous. About tonight. About all of you." "He was hiding it under jokes," I said. "Yes," Claire said. "That's exactly it." She looked at me. He said afterward, in the car, waiting for the paramedics, he said, "The dog knew and I didn't, and I was making fun of the dog." I thought about this. "Beau doesn't care about that," I said. "He licked Harrison's hand." "I saw that," Claire said, and something in her face did something that took me a moment to read, and then I recognized as the expression of a person who has seen something about the person she loves that surprised her and has decided it means something good. He didn't have to do that, Beau. He could have just ignored him. "That's not who Beau is," I said. Claire looked at the dog in the corner, who had his chin on his paws and his eyes at half-mast in the way of a dog that is resting but available. "You know what I thought when Beau licked his hand?" she said. "What?" I thought, "That dog has more grace than most people I know." I didn't say anything. She was right. Richard called me from the hospital the next day. His voice was the specific voice of someone who has been through something that has reorganized their relationship with ordinary things. Slightly slower, more careful with each word, like a person who has been reminded that words are used up from a finite supply. "Patricia told me," he said, "about Beau." "He was on it before any of us," I said. She said he was at my feet when she got to me, Richard said. He was there before I was, I said. A pause. I want to do something, Richard said, for him. I'm not sure what you do for a dog, but I want to do something. He's just happy you're okay, I said. I know, Richard said, but I want to do something anyway. He paused. I remember those jokes at dinner. Some of those jokes were mine. They were, I agreed. That's something to sit with, Richard said. Yes, I said, it is. He sent Bo a care package a week later. The good things. The treats that the vet-recommended brands don't include. The thick bully sticks. A toy that was clearly chosen by someone who had done research on what basset hounds specifically enjoy. He included a card that said, "For Bo," who was paying attention when the rest of us weren't, with more gratitude than this card has room for. Richard, I have the card. I kept it. Dominic stayed the latest that night, helping me put the last of the dinner things away. We were in the kitchen in the specific quiet of the late end of an extraordinary evening, and Bo was in his corner, and Dominic said what he'd been sitting with since the table. I want to tell you something, he said. Okay, I said. When Harrison was making those jokes, the furniture comment, the expensive furniture comment, he stopped, organizing it. I watched Bo. I watched him not react, just sitting there, taking it in. And I thought, that dog has more dignity in his face than that man has in his entire presentation. I looked at Bo. Bo had one ear folded the wrong way from lying on it, which gave him a rakish, slightly lopsided appearance. He's very dignified, I said. And then an hour later, Dominic said, that very dignified dog was the reason Richard is alive. Yes, I said. I keep thinking about the 60 seconds, Dominic said. Harrison laughing, Bo already knowing. Those two things happening at the same time. I keep thinking about it too, I said. What does it mean? Dominic said. I thought about this for a while. It means that the things we dismiss don't stop being what they are, just because we're dismissing them, I said. Bo didn't stop being capable and attentive and extraordinary because someone at the table made jokes. He just kept being himself. And when it mattered, being himself was the thing that counted. Dominic was quiet for a moment. That's a good thing to know, he said. It's the best thing I know, I said. Bo is 9 years old now. He moves slower than he did at 6 because basset hounds are not built for speed at any age and are built for even less of it as they get older. His ears still drag on the floor. His face is still arranged in the expression of philosophical concern that has been his defining feature since the day I found him in a kennel, sitting with dignity, not performing for anyone. He is, by all conventional assessments, not a glamorous animal. He is a basset hound in all the specific, deliberate, low-to-the-ground reality of that. He is also the reason Uncle Richard is alive. This is the fact that reorganizes everything else. Not a small fact. Not a fact that yields to conventional assessments of glamour or speed or impressiveness. The largest fact I know. Richard is 66 now and has made the lifestyle changes that a cardiac event imposes on a person who is serious about being alive. He calls on the first Sunday of every month. He asked about Bo before he asked about anything else for the first year after the dinner. He still asks about Bo, and I still tell him. And there is something in the asking that is more than interest in a dog. It is a person maintaining a connection to the thing that kept them here. Harrison is my brother-in-law. He and Claire married 18 months after the dinner, and at their wedding, Harrison made a speech that I was not expecting. Not about Claire, though he talked about Claire beautifully. He talked about a dinner that had gone in a direction nobody anticipated. He talked about a 60-second window between laughter and reality. He talked about what he'd learned from a basset hound about the difference between the appearance of something and what it actually is. He said in front of everyone at the wedding, "I was wrong about Beau. I was performatively wrong in front of people. And then Beau saved my future father-in-law's life without performing for anyone, without needing anyone's approval, without doing anything other than being exactly what he was." I think about that a lot. I think about it as a lesson in what actually matters. I was crying before he finished, not just because of what he said, because of the specific earned quality of it. Because Harrison, at 38, having been through a 60-second window that changed his understanding of something, had become more himself than he'd been at that dinner table, and it had taken a basset hound to get him there. Beau was at the wedding, because of course he was. He wore a bow tie because of course he did. He spent most of the reception sitting beside Richard, who had claimed him for the evening with the specific priority of a man who understands exactly how much he owes. I think about what makes something impressive. I think about the way we look at things and make rapid assessments of their value, the specific judgments of dinner tables, the charm, the presentation, the confidence of people who are good at being looked at, the things that impress us in those settings, and the things that don't. The expensive furniture comment and the laughter that followed it and the dog that was already in those same 60 seconds doing the only thing that would matter about that evening. Beau has never tried to be impressive. This is, I think, his most essential quality. He is entirely content to be what he is, slow, ground level, ears trailing, face concerned, without any effort to make you see it differently. He is simply himself, completely and without self-consciousness, and what he is turns out to be extraordinary, not despite the groundedness, because of it. Because the groundedness is the same thing as the attention, the low, nose-down, earth-close attention that found something in the air around Richard that 6 humans, with all their brain and language and social acuity, entirely missed. He missed nothing. He never misses anything. He is too close to the ground for that, too attentive to the signals that the air carries, too committed to the information that most of us float above without registering. He saved a life at a dinner table where he had been called a piece of expensive furniture 60 seconds earlier, and then he licked the hand of the man who said it. That is who Beau is. That is all of it. The saving and the forgiving and the returning to his spot on the bed as if the evening were ordinary, as if what he had done was simply what he did, as if there were no alternative, because there wasn't for him. The attention was always on. The nose was always working. The job, whenever there was a job to be done, would be done, without drama, without needing to be acknowledged, without waiting for anyone's permission or approval. That is the thing I keep coming back to 3 years later. Not just what he did, though what he did is enormous and permanent, and I will carry it my whole life, but how he did it. The complete absence of performance, the complete commitment to the actual thing, the real thing, the thing that was happening that mattered. The people at that table were laughing, and the dog was working. The laughter ended. The work turned out to be everything. Comment below and tell me where you're watching from tonight. And tell me, has a dog or cat ever done something that stopped you in your tracks? Something that made the people who underestimated them go completely quiet? I want every single one of those stories. And if you believe that the animals in our lives deserve to be seen for what they actually are, not what they look like, not what they appear to be at first glance, but what they are when it counts, subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. We tell these stories every week, the ones about the dogs at dinner tables that nobody thought to look at until the looking was the only thing that mattered. Go home and look at your dog tonight. Really look, not at what they look like, at what they do when nobody's watching. That's the whole story, right there. This story was inspired by and adapted from real-life experiences. Some names, details, and specific circumstances have been changed to protect the privacy of those involved. The ears on the floor, the 60 seconds, the hand that got licked when it didn't deserve to be. Those are as true as anything I've written, and the truest thing in them is the dog.